Welcome to another chapter of your life for the week of October 12th to the 19th. I'll be talking about some of the basic transits of this week. Let me just get straight to it. The planet of the week is going to be Venus. As I'm making this video on Saturday, the 11th, Venus, still in the last parts degrees of Virgo, was confronted by Saturn in Pisces. We call this an opposition, and Venus is tested here. And a lot of times when we see something like this, there's rules that are on the table in relating, or there is a review in the Virgo and Pisces parts of your chart. If you're a Virgo or a Pisces or a Virgo and Pisces rising, you have been dealing with major comings and goings in your life this year because the eclipses have been in those two signs. And here, Venus in Virgo and Saturn in Pisces continue the eclipse story. And usually when Saturn's involved, we're dealing with the slowing downs of things. We're dealing with pillars and foundations, and we're dealing with rules and how much one has learned or tested. They're basically tested. So Venus is tested here by Saturn. It's like, did you do this? Did you do that? Have you looked at the bigger picture of how you're relating in the Virgo or Pisces parts of your chart? Are we going to go back, or do we need to go back all the way to February and to May when we dealt with eclipses and we dealt with Saturn and Pisces being at the last degrees before it went into Aries briefly? Now it's back. And here's Venus in Virgo, which will serve when it comes to relationships and love and relating in general, will find a way to serve the greater whole of the relationship. But sometimes this, and what I'm about to say, deals with a common thing that Virgo and Pisces have together is sacrifice, service and sacrifice. And sometimes with no boundaries, we can lose our sense of self, be taken advantage of, let's say. When there's no boundaries, not a healthy relationship. And Saturn and Pisces here is bringing up those storylines and like, hey, what have you learned with these eclipses? What did you learn earlier in the year? And so we have this vibe during the weekend. And as we get into the 12th here and the beginning of the next week, 12th as in October Pacific time where I'm at, we enter into the 13th. And I'll show you a chart here. This is the 13th. I just picked a time. It's like 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific. But I'm going to show you that earlier in the day at 2:18 p.m., you will see Venus then leaves Virgo and enters the sign of Libra, and it loves being there. So after going through the internalization, Venus in Libra, and having to analyze how one stands in relationships, how one serves in the relationships, and the details that are involved there, it gets to come home, one of two homes that it loves to be in. One of them is Taurus, and the other one is Libra. It enters in officially, like I said, let me get it straight here, 2:18 p.m. on the 13th of October. It is going to last all the way until November 6th, where it will go into Scorpio. I'm going to make a video next week just about the important dates for this. We like wherever our planet is in whatever sign, and we have to deal with whatever that is. Is it easy going, Venus and Libra? It can be. Its main goal is to serve and not to serve, but to harmonize, to find harmonization in any kind of relating situation. Also deals with the politics of relationships, and it will do it in a non-caustic way. It will not do it in an Aries way, that's for sure. It will do it in a non-caustic way. So a lot of times we want to find harmony first through our senses, and then we incorporate that in whatever we're doing in the world. It could be the relationship of you and the world, or you and another person, or you and a group of other people, but it's the balance and the dynamics that are involved with Venus and Libra, and Venus loves to be here. Everyone is heard, everyone has their say, and somehow, if possible, it is all harmonious and balanced. Now, is that an impossible task? I think so most of the time, but we attempt to do this in our lives. We attempt to do this, and we should do this, and Venus and Libra shows us how to do this. Remember, Libra is an air sign. It's about mental processes and how we do this socially. So it's very important that we have to, in a sense, how we learn and how we to balance and harmonize in relationships starts with ourselves first and foremost. The next step is how we do it outside of ourselves, and it's about the art of this. And so Venus in Libra starts here on Monday, and it starts off with, I'm not going to say a bang, but it starts off with some dreaming, because basically on the opposite side of this, as soon as this happens, we know Neptune is in Aries. You can see I'm pointing here at 0 degrees Aries point. 0 degrees, one of the important spaces and points of the year, along with 29 Pisces, is pretty much the narrative of the year here, that 29 and 0 degrees. Now, Venus in Libra is opposite Neptune. This is a little dreamy. It can be imaginative. It could be like, hey, when these two are opposite each other, a lot of times when they're relating to each other in other astrological aspects, they will find a way to disappear. Or take off the rough edges of things, or be in an imaginative space, a visualization space. And so when Venus and Neptune get together, we can kind of sail off into things and idealize things. And I think this is good in certain situations if need be. At the other end of it, things aren't true, or they're not clear, or you don't know what's real or what's not. Or it could seem to Venus and Libra that all seems balanced. But is it? And Neptune kind of puts its shade and illusion and sometimes cloudiness over relating. So it's how you do this. And you can look to the Aries and Libra parts of your chart to see this theme. And I think this is an important marker here for the week, because Venus starts off its run in Libra all the way till November with Neptune off the bat in an influence. So there is a dream quality to all this. We also want to also make the differentiation between what is real and what is not, if possible. But a lot of times with an aspect like this, we're dealing with illusions. And sometimes we need to go to the illusionary place, right? To take off the edges of life, the harshness of life. And other times, are we just ignoring something really and getting distracted by the illusion and not dealing with reality? So you take what you want from that. You have to judge for yourself. But pretty much at 6:15 on October 13th, Venus will be opposite Neptune. And it is not too long after that the planet Pluto, which has been retrograde here for months, is going to stop at 1 degrees Aquarius, as I'm pointing to on the screen, and it will station forward, as they say. And then we have the Plutonian story that's involved here on the back end. Like all the planets, like Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, when we talk about them in astrology, we're talking about a bigger social construct and how it's functioning. When it comes to the individual and these planets in your chart, a lot of time things are happening under the surface, and there's other planets, faster moving bodies, let's say it's Venus or Mercury or Mars, Jupiter, to come through, and if they are relating to the outer body planets, you'll see the theme pop up. But it's there the whole time, and it's for the world. This is an important moment of the year because Pluto is starting to move forward. And as we know, and if you don't know, it's okay. We know that when we come into early next year, this will be very important, as in all the outer body planets, we're basically dealing from Saturn all the way to Pluto, will be fully engaged and entrenched in their signs for years to come. So we want to make a note of Pluto stationing here at 7:52 on the 13th. Let me switch to my face. We get to the 14th, and guess what happens? We're going to have more Venus come our way. And if you could start to paint the picture this week and look to the Libra part of your chart, it is very important to pay attention to Venus this week. We will go into the 14th. I will show you here. And where is Venus? Here now, Venus, it's already moving pretty fast. We're already on the 14th here, and Venus is at 1 degree. But we're just looking at Pluto in 1 degree stationing forward out of a retrograde place, right? It's at a standstill. We're also going to pay attention to the planet fellow air sign Uranus right here at 0 degrees. We pretty much here in the beginning of the week are doing a Grand Air Trine, which is, as being an air sign person who have a lot of air in my chart, I love this kind of stuff. I was born with an air trine in my chart. I have familiarity with this kind of stuff, but I will tell you with what looks good on paper, like a trine aspect, because basically I'll show you here, these planets are pretty much 120 degrees away from each other, and it creates this trine aspect here. And it's like, oh, this is great. There's a free-flowing movement here between the three air signs. One's Pluto and Aquarius, the other one's Uranus and Gemini, right? And then we have Venus in Libra. This is pretty good. And it is technically. But a lot of times I see that when we deal with trines in a chart, we have to think about it as a muscle, and we have to flex that muscle because it has a tendency, trines, for things to come easily, but it can become lazy. So if I were to say anything about this week, is I would flex this air trine muscle this week. So we have this fascinating, incredible air mind aspect trine, 100 degrees here, 20 degrees of each other. If you have anything in early degree air, this is an important moment. And the reason why I think it's important, because it's a foreshadowing of what's going to happen next year when we have Uranus back into Gemini. It will happen at the end of April because Uranus is going to leave. It's currently retrograde. It's going to leave Gemini and go backwards into Taurus again to clean up some stuff in the Taurus part of your chart. But it isn't until next April where, Uranus will go back into Gemini and Pluto will be there in Aquarius. And then we'll really finally kick off this massive period of time of Uranus and Pluto and air signs, and how we deal with the future and how we relate with each other with our minds, and what our minds come up with as a culture, as a world, as society, of how we're relating socially to each other. And we're dealing with ideas and the exchange of ideas, so on and so forth. We see what has been happening here with technology and the changes happening, whether it's AI, the rights to AI, the companies that are running this kind of stuff, the people who are wanting independence from something like that or wanting to create communities of their own. How will this happen? The old ways of doing this on the internet or even face-to-face are changing. It's been changing for a long time. But there's something more coming. And we don't know quite what it is yet. But as a community, we know, and we've had some foreshadowing this year, especially earlier this year between June and September. So we see it, and here is another glimpse of possibly what is to be foreshadowed of how we will be relating with each other and our communities and as a whole on planet Earth. I just wanted to stop and break that down. First of all, 7:09 a.m., Venus will trine Uranus. I'll show you again. There's Venus trine Uranus. That happens on the 14th at 7:09 a.m. Pacific, and it's at 4:45 p.m. later in the day that Venus will trine Pluto. And hence we have this air trine. It's not perfect mathematically, but it's pretty much there. If you are the type of person that brainstorms, that has interesting flash out of the pan ideas, or there's a different way, let's say, from the Libra part of your chart to the Gemini part of your chart to relate to each other and find a conduit of understanding, this is the week for it. If you want to take it on a deeper level and you have some sort of way of like a project between the Aquarius part of your chart, the Libra part of your chart, and the Gemini part of your chart, try to find the synchronicity between all those 3 points and find the free-flowing conduit there. And a lot of the times, it's just happening up here with air signs. The important thing is, if you really want to utilize this, is move your body when you do this. It's really easy these days with technology to sit on your behind and look on the phone and scroll. I think that's just monotonous. I think what's happening here is beyond that, and we want to take our minds beyond that place, and we want to put our minds in put ourselves in a different outlook, a different space, an alternative way of looking at things. And when we put ourselves in those spaces, not just in our mind, but with our body, we have a new view of things. And that is kind of like a way to use this particular aspect, okay? So we see within days, between the 13th and 14th, Venus goes into Libra. Venus is opposite Neptune. As I pointed out here, pretty much Venus hits all the 3 heavy hitter outer body planets within 24 hours, and it pretty much lasts all week. When we get all the way into the 16th here, and I'll forward the chart up for you all. I'm doing things differently this week. People who know my channel, I'm usually outside when I'm making these. We could say on the 16th, the moon's going to go into Virgo, as we see right here. We're going to touch upon the eclipse story that's still ongoing. And then it's later on at night at 10:42 that the sun in Libra is going to be squared by Jupiter in Cancer. We have to make a note of this here at 24 degrees. These two here are in cardinal signs. Jupiter tends to blow things up, to magnify more things. It's about relationships with this aspect. It's also about how safety and security is very important in relationships, whether we have it or not. Right? So here Jupiter Cancer is bringing this to the sun. They have their interesting relating here. It could be tough for people who have planets at these degrees between 22 and 25 degrees cardinal signs. Let me remind you, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, those are the cardinal signs. If this one were to utilize a square like this, I think it's more about what the sense of like how we stand with ourselves and our sense of home within ourselves. And then when we branch out and relate, do we still have that sense of home or do we lose it? And when we are relating, that means we have to take in whatever we're relating to, their sense of home, safety, and security. And then there's yours. And how does that balance? And can it balance, right? So this is what can happen, one storyline with an aspect like this, okay? So that's pretty much that happens late my time Pacific on the 16th, 10:42. It is Sun square Jupiter, Jupiter square Sun. And then when we get to the next day, we're pretty much going, if I'm correct here, we're still in a Virgo moon. For those of you who are Chiron followers, we know then the sun at 24 degrees is opposite Chiron. So if you're a person in your early 50s that's doing a Chiron return, this is definitely a chapter in all this. We're looking, again, with anything Libra and Aries, we're trying to find a balance. It's a Mars-Venus story, but we're taking advantage of an aspect like this because Venus loves to be in Libra. And I think this is a great moment between Aries and Libra because they've been through so much in the last year and a half because they got eclipses there and soon to be having Saturn in the Libra and Aries world. Here's where we find the balance between one's wounds and the needs in the Aries part of the chart and how Libra can hear and listen to those needs from Aries. It's not saying you succumb and it's not a power play, but I think it's more about like how we relate in general, okay? To keep things simple, those are just for the people who are in the Chiron. We get into the 18th, and I'll bust the chart here. You could also see here, I'm going to show you something very important. We can't forget about Mars here, and it's at 18 degrees Scorpio, and it basically connects with the eclipse story here. You see the 17 degree Pisces North Node and the South Node is 17 degrees. You see Mercury's involved in this and Mars. So part of the eclipse story is moving here, and I think Mars and Mercury and Scorpio get to the nitty-gritty truth between these moon's nodes, between Pisces and Virgo. The Virgo situation has been through so much in the last 60 days. You're like wondering how much can a Virgo take, or how much can a Virgo placements take? But it's here from a water sign, Scorpio, that it kind of buoys and uplifts through truth and a laser focus that Mars and Mercury had to pinpointing the truth of a situation. And you know, Virgo loves this stuff in the end, even if it's the harshest of truths, the coldest of truths. I think Virgo here in the South Node here and the moon going through around this time here when we deal with the 17th and 18th, if you're one of these people who are involved in the Virgo Pisces storyline with eclipses, you got pretty much a Scorpionic magnifying lens that's going to come in here and really show you what you have to do to regenerate those parts of your chart. And that's the beauty of Scorpio. They're going to, if you were to ask them, like, just give it to me straight. Oh, they're going to give it to you straight. They're going to tell you exactly. And it could be really hard to hear, but no other sign in the zodiac, I'll say Gemini will do it. They'll just be tricky about how they'll tell you the truth. But no one could do it like Scorpio when Mercury's involved here. It can be so profound, the messaging, that it can rock you and can be taken hurtfully sometimes for some people. Let's say it's the Virgo peeps, right? Or wherever your placements are. And we know Venus just left there having to do eclipse work. And then here's Scorpio. I was like, hey, you asked me, I'm telling you. But they'll tell you, or this storyline will tell you in a type of way where it's actually very supportive, because who else can you go to hear the coldest and harshest of truth if need be? And sometimes everyone does love and compassion in different types of ways, right? There's a gentle way of things, of holding space for somebody, but sometimes there's got to be somebody out there or a situation out there that just says, you know what? Get it together, or here's the deal. No one else is going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this because everyone's afraid to tell you this. I'm not afraid to tell you anything. And that's how, Mercury and Scorpio, Mars and Scorpio are going to act. And they're going to want you not just to hear it, but to act upon this. And so basically Mars and Mercury are making a harmonious sextile, which is an opportunic aspect, and that will also connect with the North Node in Pisces. Again, Virgo and Pisces have another interesting week going on here, so on and so forth. I call the Venus week here, but at the end of the week, we start to creep in on Mars and Mercury and Scorpio, and it will continue. On the 19th, I will show you right here. Then we get into the full waterness that a lot of us have been talking about in the astrology world. It really, truly begins, I think. And we get into the 19th on the Sunday. We have the official conjunction, or we have Mercury and Mars still connecting with the nodes, like I just mentioned. And it is 11:51 that night, October 19th, and going into the 20th, that we will have at our official Mercury-Mars conjunction that will happen in Scorpio. Fundamental moment here, and I think it sets up the rest of the next month and a half in astrology. And the reason is because Mercury eventually is going to leave Scorpio and go into Sagittarius, and then it's going to stop and go retrograde and come all the way back to about 20 degrees Scorpio. Not only that, it starts to set up a story here, an emotional story, where we're dealing with all the water signs from Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Jupiter being in Cancer as we speak at pretty much 24 degrees. We know Saturn is moving backwards in Pisces and will go all the way back to 25, and eventually Mercury and Mars are going to hit these places, and we start to build the slow grand water trine that's going to happen for the rest of October all the way into November. So it is important when we get to next week to pay attention to the messaging that is coming from the Scorpionic parts of our chart, whether you like it or not. Scorpio deals with regeneration. It deals with a type of truth that sometimes one does not know until they go deep to investigate it, or to go deep within, however it's focused. We're dealing with a fixed sign with Scorpio, that once it is connected and passionately, and then at times obsessively trying to get to the heart of something, to the truth of something, it is going to do it in a profound and intimate way. And with Mercury being here, there's messaging that's going to be said or might be around. Some people might not say it. Some people might start to really put it together within and still keep it Scorpio secretive, right? But at some point, it is and will be said. And that will be the journey of Mercury and Scorpio here all the way until November. And there could be things that are said that are not fully formulated, and during the retrograde it has to go back and revamped and looked at again and eventually said again. So when we're dealing with processes that go to the deepest places like Scorpio likes to do, and we might have to do it multiple times, does one have the courage to take that way of traveling? Some run away from it. They're scared. That's why Scorpios get a bad rap. You want to know why they get a bad rap? Because a lot of times when Scorpios are balanced, and I'm not talking about the unbalanced Scorpionic stuff that it's dark and manipulative, and I'm calling some of you out here because I know some of you do this kind of stuff. And on this channel, when people watch my channel, they know I have my connection to Scorpio people and to Scorpio risings, right? I know you all. You just keep coming into my life. And by the way, I don't come into your life. You're usually coming into my life. So that's kind of an interesting position for you, isn't it? You won't admit it, but I see it and I accept it, and I'm standing there with you all. And I'm not afraid of your energy, because I know you'll give it to me straight. Or if there's a project that you and I are involved in, and I know if you're committed to that project, you're loyal to the project, and it's creative, there ain't no stopping us. I'll take your loyalty and your fixedness and your directness anytime when you're fully balanced, okay? So saying that, we want to look for these secret messages now in the next couple weeks when we deal with the Scorpionic parts of your chart or in general here. And I have a feeling you're going to see it even in world controversies out there, whether it's politics or famous people, whatever else. There's stuff that's going to come out of the blue, and there was a secret that was revealed. We're going to see this type of stuff because that happens with these transits, like with Mercury and Mars there. But in general, I'll take a Mercury, Mars, and Scorpio transit anytime. And when utilized, it can pull a project from nothing to something, right? Or bring a profound truth that is tattooed on your effing soul, right? It's that type of movement. So we kind of end the week there with Mercury, Mars, and that will continue in the week. I'll talk about that in the week's forecast. I thought I'd do something different this time. I haven't done a forecast from my studio and with my owl. And that's my forecast. If you're new here and you made it this far, hit the subscribe button. If you happen to live in the Tucson, Arizona area, I'm going to be there here next weekend while we do this Mercury-Mars situation that I mentioned. I will be there from the 16th, 17th, all the way to the 20th. Monday, I will be speaking on a podcast. It's Saturday night at Cosme Astrology Studio in Tucson, Arizona, a facility that Lisa Warman, a fellow astrologer, is running there. I'll be there with fellow astrologers Cameron Allen, right? And Ashley, another person who is a multiverse practitioner. It's Ashley, Cameron, Lisa, and I will be speaking on the podcast. We'll be talking about Saturn, Neptune, and we'll be talking about the Grand Water Trine. And if you're in the area, it's free to attend. Just go there and get a free ticket and register. There's also other workshops that are happening that weekend. I'll be hanging around. I also have time. And if you're there in the Tucson area and you'd like to get an in-person reading with me, hit me up here on the messaging in the copy of the YouTube video, and I'll have some time, and it'd be great to see you all face to face, and we could talk about the truth. And knowing me, and if some of you know me, because I have Scorpionic placements, the truth will be flowing through me, unfiltered this weekend, and especially on my podcast, all right? So thanks for listening. I hope you all have a good week. Remember, it's a Venus week, but ends with powerful Mars and Mercury in Scorpio. Hit up the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video.